Hey guys, it's Katarina, and today I'm making a video on the best games to play while learning a language. These are going to range from PS4, Nintendo Switch to iOS and Android games, and follow along if you want to find out more. So one of the main ones is obviously Minecraft. This one's good for just kind of any sort of vocabulary. I kind of focus on the farming aspect as well as the mining. Sometimes some of the household things like glass and things like that, because I obviously wouldn't be searching or googling these words on random, so it's really nice to come across them in Minecraft and being like, oh, that's what it is. And sometimes I'll write it down if I'm not too familiar with it, and I just really like the wide, weird, obscure vocabulary that I can grasp from playing Minecraft. And I play it for hours on end, and by the time I automatically know what certain things mean, but obviously I have to do a little bit of review afterwards because, you know, it's fun though. The second one is recently came out on Nintendo Switch, I think a year ago, but it is Portal 1 and 2. I recently found out I could play this in Russian and I was so happy. So I've been playing it in Russian, and it's really funny when GLaDOS and Wheatley are talking to me in Russian, and GLaDOS is talking really fast in the first game for some reason and it's super robotic, but I find it really helpful for slang and being able to comprehend quicker speech, because obviously I'm wanting to know what they're talking about, and I haven't played Portal too much to know what they're saying regardless, like I do in the game that I'm going to mention later. But it's just really interesting, and I really enjoy hearing the banter and just being able to really think about what they're saying, because I'm doing a lot of thinking in that game. It's a puzzle game, so Portal 1 and 2 definitely recommend, and it's just fun. The next game is also on Nintendo Switch. I'm going to combine these two, but it is Mario Kart and Animal Crossing, both games that I cherish. Mario Kart's kind of pushed to the side just because there's not much dialogue, but it is really interesting to see placements and abbreviations for certain things in Russian, so that was really helpful, especially with numbers and, you know, placements and races and things like that, and being able to learn different like acceleration vocabulary for doing the car stuff and character selection. But the main one was Animal Crossing, which I find super interesting because I've been playing that game forever since it came out in March of 2020, throwback. But it's really cool because all the little characters talk to you, and figuring out their slang and what they're saying is really cool, but also seeing like Nook's Cranny translated into Russian is really awesome as well. So if you happen to have that game, I recommend it, playing it in your target language, because you'd be surprised at the things you learn and pick up through playing it, and it's just really cute. The next game is two of them, The Last of Us and The Last of Us Part 2. These are my favorite games ever, all time, and I have mentioned them previously on my channel, but I find them really useful for learning Russian, as I have memorized both translations of the games now because I play them so often. And that's another thing I recommend, is just playing the game that you really like in English, but then also eventually translating it into the language that you're learning, and eventually you'll make those connections and you won't even be playing the game, and you'll associate the word that you heard with the other word in your native language. I find it really helpful, especially when I'm not really feeling up to studying and I just want to play, but I'm also learning Russian. So it's killing a bird with two stones, or killing two birds with one stone. I have no idea, but I just really enjoy the game. It is a bit pricey if you're just getting the game for the language, but if you happen to have it, I definitely recommend playing it in a different language and seeing how that feels, because it is really weird at first. You're like, that's not what they're supposed to say. Kind of how I felt during the show. I was like, that's not exactly. But anyway, definitely recommend that game, and other games too, like Call of Duty, you know, World of Warcraft, things like that. I don't really play those games, but playing a game that you are really familiar with and you know the lines by heart, it could even be multiplayer, but having the system in the language you're learning is incredibly helpful and good for memorization. I lied. The last game on Steam is Papers, Please. This one actually doesn't have any dialogue, it only has text, And the reason why I'm recommending it is because of the repetitive nature of it. And I would honestly recommend it to people who are only learning the alphabet and kind of starting to build and need to learn what character goes to which character, if they're, studying from English to whatever. I would definitely recommend that, just because there is no dialogue in it and it would be difficult if they're not speaking anything. So just being able to read it and understand it is really helpful. So yeah, papers, please. Now this next game is on iOS, and this is one of my favorite farming games, but it's Heyday. I'm not sure if it's on Android, but this game has helped me understand like farming vocab so much, because it's easier to access than it is for Animal Crossing. But being able to understand these words from playing a farming game and selling my little crops on my farm is so cool. It's so much better than being able to translate a recipe, but I really enjoy being able to slowly understand certain words for wheat or for carrots or for lavender. It's very obscure, but it is really helpful because I don't really like just boom, 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 study vocab. I just like learning it through games. So Heyday if you like farming. Now this next one I think is geared towards different languages that you're learning, but I do know there's Russian equivalences, but it's basically Wordle, but in your target language. So in the little word search games. I find these so helpful for developing a bigger vocabulary, because I will just be randomly moving the words because I don't know all of them. But I also, when I do get them right, I'm like, okay, I do know some of these words, I do understand some of them. So you do have to have a little pen and pad next to you to be able to write some of these words down, but it is really helpful. And congruent to this, I would also say crossword puzzles. I have a lot of newspapers in Russian, and I'm trying to go ahead and get all the crosswords on. So I know there's a ton of apps in different languages, so doing that is surprisingly fun and helpful to also know kind of the cultural bounds of certain vocabulary. Filling out a crossword in English is already difficult enough, and it's very attached to cultural centers. You have to be in a certain group to understand. So being able to do it in your target language, and for me Russian, is really humbling, because I'm like, oh, I know this one because it's associated with this. So crosswords and kind of Wordle equivalents and find the words are really helpful for building up that kind of cultural vocabulary, if I may. And that is the end of the video. I apologize if these are a little bit out of price ranges and a little bit obscure, but I just kind of wanted to get the point across for the games that I pretty much use for learning Russian when I'm either bored or too lazy to study, and games that I just enjoy. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Write a comment on which games you might use or what you're wanting to use to learn your target language of choice, and if you have any recommendations for others and things like that.